broken.
Ah.
So I did a new live stream, so this will just confuse everybody, which is great. All right, I'll tinker with the thumbnail in the first few minutes, but we can get going. If you want to count us in, Scott, and we can be live.
Okay. Give me 1 second here. Okay. Ready when you are. If you want to count us in.
Yeah. 3,
Recording in
2,
progress.
1, and we're rolling.
Well, hello and welcome to Long Toss, episode 369. We are back. It's been a few weeks, but we are really excited to chat some Blue Jays baseball here. Some familiar faces, some new ones. Before we get going, I will say, please hit that like button and subscribe if you're not. It helps the channel. We've been hovering around 30 subs away from 5,000 for a little while now. We were really had momentum here, and then we stopped doing long tosses, and that's what happened. So it's our own fault, but a little help from you folks, the listeners, would be great. The Blue Jays losing 2 of 3 to the Atlanta Braves, but the truth is, it felt like they could have won this series. So we're going to dive into it. We've got all sorts of stuff to talk about here. We will get into Spencer Horwitz and how hot he has been. Nathan Lukes as well has been really interesting. Obviously a veteran guy, 30 years old. So how much more can you expect out of him, if anything? We'll toss that around the panel here. Vladdy chasing down a batting title. The guy has been about as hot as you can be, and I mean that legitimately. Since the All-Star break, he's literally one of the best OPSs in Major League Baseball history. Like, we're talking Ted Williams and Barry Bonds are the guys that are ahead of him. Gibby! What are you laughing about here, Adam?
I was just gonna say the run is right up there with Davis Schneider from last season, one of the all times.
That's right. It's a Davis Schneider type of run here for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Friend of the show, John Gibbons, now bench coach for the New York Mets, making his return. So we'll talk a little bit of Gibby. We'll talk that Mets series. We'll also get into how historically bad the Chicago White Sox have been. And before we introduce this panel, I'm going to just pump my wife's tires a little bit here. Taylor Belford has started doing some acting, and she was actually doing background work on The Order, which is at the TIFF Film Festival here in Toronto right now. And anyone who knows anything about background acting knows that if you think that you are going to be in it, you will be cut. And it was really cool. She was in it. She had a couple scenes, obviously nothing talking or anything like that, but it was pretty cool to be like, holy shit, that's my wife. So anyways, we will talk baseball now. Joel, welcome back, buddy. I know you've been a busy man the last month here. Appreciate you taking time to talk some Blue Jays.
A great
Did I
time
literally
for
go to the
technical
one guest who
difficulties.
I literally
Amazing.
All right.
And then there was one hiccup, and it's right when you go to me. I love that timing.
Perfect.
It was clean for the entire duration of that, and then
Your
Joel,
internet has been immaculate this whole time coming up to this.
that was hilarious. I've been busy. It's nice to be back. Tough stretch of the season. We had a nice run there for a few games. We had that nice win streak, but then we followed it up with, just another 10, 12 games of exactly what this season's been since the very beginning. So, it's nice to be back. Wish it was slightly more optimistic circumstances, but always great to talk baseball.
And we also have another regular, one of the folks who all season long has kept this program going, or at least mostly going.
And it's on.
Yeah, it's time to time we're on. Baseball Jen, welcome back. How was your weekend?
Not too bad. Not too bad. It's in some ways nice to not have to worry about actual outcomes of games when you get an outcome like today and be able to just not be angry about it.
Well, I mean, I was still frustrated to see that, I went into the theater and they were down 1-0, and then I checked my phone just secretly, right, and they were up 2-1 in the 8th, and I was like, holy shit, are they going to do this? And then get out of it, and it's like, no. So I agree. They're in a point of the season right now where at least we can just shrug it off of like, well, we got nothing to play for anyways. My co-host, my good friend, Adam Mack, you are in your first long toss since, I think, April?
It's been a minute. It's been a minute.
Last long toss you did, there was still hope that this team...
Yeah, it's been that long, hey?
It's been that long, and I love your background. For those community fans out there, Adam has chosen the darkest timeline.
The darkest time. We're living through it right now. We'll see what the offseason brings.
Also very excited to welcome for the first time on the long toss, good friend of the show, someone who's come down and been a guest on Baseball Town, which, by the way, we're running that September 12th, Thursday, the last Baseball Town of the year. You can get your tickets at comedybar.ca. Come down and join us. Lizzie McGuire with the Jaybird Watching Podcast. Thanks for making time.
Thanks for having me. I also want to echo that it does feel nice to not have to do all the baseball math that you get so good at the end of the season. It's like this happens and we're half, or it's like the fractions and how good I get at math gets like exponentially better the closer we get to the wild card. And I'm really happy to not be doing math right now and just enjoying the games. And also, I don't know, I feel bad for the Mets, but I like watching the kids kind of scramble up everybody else's playoff odds.
I agree. It has been interesting to watch Atlanta fall out of a playoff spot. I think they're tied again for that final wild card. But literally, Atlanta and the Mets facing the Jays, like the Blue Jays are actually going to determine some playoff odds here, which is, I mean, it's all we've got to play for right now. Let's start with you, Joel, because it has been some time since I've got to hear your thoughts on this Toronto Blue Jays team facing former general manager Alex Anthopoulos, just to sweeten this series we watched a little bit more here. So curious what your thoughts were on just this series right now, living in the present with all of these kids that are playing right now. What did you think? And obviously, it goes without saying, this bullpen is still a real area of concern.
Oh, absolutely. It's an interesting situation because the teams are very similar in a lot of ways. Acuna going down for a chunk of the season, Bo going down for a chunk of the season, Manoah going down, Strider going down, right? They suffered like rather similar losses, and Atlanta's been able to kind of tread water here with those, losing your unanimous MVP is tough. That's tough. You've got, and then the guy who was probably top 3 to win a Cy Young in the NL. And then, so that's losing really, really big pieces. But here they are fighting for that wild card, kind of the place we would hope to be. And us on the other end of things, kind of suffering similar losses, but not really being in contention at all. So, tale of two teams with similar hopes, kind of at the beginning of the season, taking different routes, even though the similarities are quite similar.
Good use of words there, Joel.
Thank you.
Really cornering that similar word. Jen, curious what your thoughts were on this weekend here, being that it did feel like there were times when this team could have taken 2 or 3 from a very good Atlanta Braves team.
Oh, absolutely. And that just goes to show some of the talent that is on this team right now, and means also that the front office has some very important decisions to make this offseason with regards to said talent. But as the old saying goes, any team can beat any other team on any given day because that's baseball. And if it wasn't for a bad bullpen and B some inexperience, particularly today, they definitely could have taken 2 out of 3.
Yeah, Lizzie, can you speak a little to that inexperience? Because this is one
Yeah.
thing everyone and what's really funny about what we're watching right now is that around mid-June, we all begged for this.
It's true.
Right? We were
Yeah,
like, we literally were like,
I want
dear
this.
God, at least make it fun to watch. And here we are, and it's like, oh yeah, when you're dealing with
Kids.
youth, there's gonna be some bumps and bruises.
Yeah, and I think here's the thing. It's like I stand by the fact that I want to be here, right? And when we're watching these kids scramble, and I mean, the bullpen is a circus. Like I think that's bigger than all of us and the players. That's on management, I believe. But in terms of like, I'm not as mad when they lose. If I'm watching, Kevin Kiermaier strike out for the 50th time, I have rage in my heart. But it's like, Horowitz is like banging right now, and so it's like I have more forgiveness, and I think that like they're auditioning for next year. They're auditioning for me of like who is going to be in our core and what does this mean for us as a team. And it's like, yeah, man, yesterday's game was awesome. Like Scotty, I was texting you and I was like, I think we're going to lose today, and then we didn't. We just came at them and just utterly disgraced this super competent baseball team by just scoring runs on runs on runs. And that was a blast. And even today, we went to extra innings. That was a good time until, of course, we don't really have
Until
a
it
closer right
wasn't.
now. Until
Yes.
it wasn't. But it's like, that's fun. That's really fun. And I don't know. Like, it's. I still stand by that I'm enjoying being here. If we're here next year, I'll be mad. And I'll be really mad.
So, Adam, we've talked about this quite a bit, though. And so I am going to throw to you on if you, as a fan, are falling in love with this team as is right now, bad idea, correct?
Yeah. Oh, is that ever a... Like, if I am, as a fan, I'm falling in love with the roster? Like, these kids? Like,
Yeah,
don't fall in love with any of them.
any of them.
No one is safe. Like,
I'm going to interject here. I come from a dairy farm, and we have baby animals every spring, and, like, they go away. And so you don't fall in love with the baby animals. That's it.
Yeah. It's a great
Just
reference.
don't fall in love, period.
Yeah.
How about that?
There you go.
Adam, when you look at, and we'll dive into Jose Berrios here after we talk the kids a little bit, but let's talk Spencer Horwitz for a second, because I think, and we'll go around the horn and get everyone's opinion on this, but I think if there is one guy out of all of these guys that are playing for a spot, he seems the most likely to probably stick around. He's third in rookies right now when it comes to OPS plus. He's sitting at 130 for his OPS plus right now, which is far and away above average. Spencer Horwitz's numbers right now kind of look like, if you were to stretch it out over a full season, he is a 40 doubles, 20 home runs, and a 785 OPS, and that feels like a pretty darn good number 5 bat in the order, like I
look,
so I guess go ahead, Adam.
we just watched this movie, the David Schneider Experience. I'm over it. Like, I'm happy for Spencer to be succeeding at the major league level. He's going to have a really cool highlight reel to show his kids when he's not playing Major League Baseball in 3 years. Like, he's a 24th round draft pick by the Blue Jays in 2019. Like, yeah, it happens from time to time, but like, this isn't Orelvis Martinez, who's been a top prospect, can't miss guy in the system for 5 years, finally breaking through, and now he's doing it. Like, love him, love what he's doing, but he's overachieving, and to think it's even likely is a generous word for the probability of him being a valuable contributor to a playoff team in 2025.
Well, and that's sorry, Adam. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say that's why I'm saying like the important decisions here are who do you keep and who do you trade, right? Who has value that can bring you back something that you need, because a lot of these guys are not somebody you're necessarily going to have on your roster if you truly intend to contend in 2025. But also, yeah, we got to remember this fan base or members of this fan base, was anointed Schneider the nickname Babe way too prematurely. And yes, he was totally fun to watch and what a great time for him, but it was completely unsustainable, right? And we might be seeing a few more performances right now that are also unsustainable. It doesn't mean they're not fun or good or whatever, but I don't think we can necessarily put all of our eggs in a particular basket, and we just.
So Joel, whose basket do you want to exit? Like, there is a real play for next year kind of mentality going on with this young core, but are any of these players guys that, for lack of a better term, have a guaranteed spot with this Toronto Blue Jays team in 2025? Or do you think every single one of them could be on the move if the right deal arises?
I can't make any bold claims about what management's going to do, like where they feel they're on the hot seat. I'm beyond thinking that these people should be the ones making the decisions for this team. So I don't even know how long this leash goes, right? Like I think we've already established that they're coming back. Atkins will run this team again next year. Like it seems like that's the case. So that's really shocking to me that's possible coming off of the expectations of the season and going into next and expecting them to make the right decisions. It's identity to me. It always comes down to identity. Like 21 had an identity. We shifted that identity to what 2022 was, which was a question mark. And 23 was a push more towards that question mark of pitching and defense and inconsistent offense. And then to the point of tripling down on it and then not. So I don't know. It's this situation of you've got this internal struggle with the players that were competent, who have gone on to have success elsewhere. The Matt Chapmans who are like, it's a hell of a time being there. And I'm so happy to be in San Francisco. I shouldn't be doing better offensively here, but I am. It has a lot to do with just how I feel coming to the ballpark every day and what Chris Bassett has to say and what Bo is clearly feeling and wanting to be a part of this team. It's like, those are scary aspects to say, oh, but these guys are still going to be running this organization. The players aren't happy. The players aren't happy who are here, and the players who have been here don't understand why they were moved. They wanted to come back. The ones that were successful who wanted to come back, oh no, we've wiped our hands clean of them and we won't look at them again. So it's just the decision making is, I don't know, it's maybe more personal than it is business at this point. And so I can't really tell you next year, this is how we're competitive with this mind at the head of the body, right?
Nathan Lucas is another example of what we're talking about. I do wonder a little bit, 30 years old, he's a guy who probably should have been with this team more last year even. He is a perennial 320 to 330 hitter at the AAA level. The guy hits. The guy puts the ball in play. And I know that there was last night's broadcast, Buck Martinez, who in his old age has stopped pulling any sort of punches whatsoever. He just calling it like he sees it, and if it hurts feelings, it hurts feelings. But more or less, and I'm paraphrasing right now, but basically he said he could have been a much cheaper Kevin Kiermaier to start the season, and that's obviously showing off that the $10.5 million spent on Kevin Kiermaier could have been had for the same production, maybe even more production for $800,000. So, Lizzie, when you look at the way the roster was constructed in 2024, the decisions that this front office made, and I know hindsight's 2020, and it's really easy right now to go, oh, of course they should have put that $10.5 million into somewhere else that was more needed. But there were a lot of redundancies going into 2024. We watched KK and Varsho in center field. We watched Ernie Clement and IKF literally fill the same needs. So when you look at this roster, and we're both enjoying these kids, Joel kind of touched on it. My question to you is, how much faith do you have in this front office to do what they're saying for 2025 and actually compete? And how do you envision that happening?
Yeah. So I think we all kind of have the same kind of vibe that, I mean, the front office said even last year, it's like, we like our guys. We're going to stick with our guys, which told us after last year's playoffs, the direction they were going to take. And yeah, they had all of the same guys, which I think was a problem for identity. And as a result, now our culture in the team is mush. It's like, no, I can't see it. It's real foggy and weird. I don't see a clear direction. Part of that is being intentional. Here's who plays first base. Here's who plays second base. Here's our third baseman. Like, right? It's like, I'm tired of the discussion of like, Vladdy's going to play third, or is he on first? Like, I'm tired of that. Let's be more intentional with our positions and like get good ones to play there to ensure that like we have all the best players playing the best spots. And I think in terms of whether we all know they're not
So
going to do it.
Lizzie, you're saying we don't need every player with the ability to play second base.
No, we don't ever. Not everyone has to be the same action figure who plays second base. Like, no, we don't need that. I mean, until like one day we will, and I'll eat my words. But like, no, we don't need that. And the other thing is that yeah, we know they say we're going to compete next year. But they're lying to us again. The management lies to us. They lie to their fan base. They're gaslighting us. They gaslight us every day. But I think what we need to understand here is. What does it look like? What does a feasible next season look like that we know they're going to lie to us? Maybe they'll make some big offseason trades. And I'm going to say that for me, a success or a big failure for this front office has been the farm team, and that our farm team is cooked. Like, it's so cooked. And so I'm scared about the future. I don't think we're going to compete next year. And this front office is a bunch of guys in suits who are bullshitting us.
Jen?
Yeah,
thoughts?
I just want to add to that because, you know, yes, they had a decent trade deadline, but in having that deadline, they did have to give up some of those pieces that were maybe part of the identity of this team. And I understand why they had to go that route because of, you know, expiring contracts. But if the team had been in a better position, then they wouldn't have had to do that, right? So out the door went, you know, a guy like Danny Jansen, who really was somebody who you felt was like at the core, you know, identity of this team. And I think, frankly, any front office could have had that trade deadline with the assets that they had to trade, right? Like, clearly Kikuchi had tremendous value out there on the market. But they're now in a position where if they're truly going to compete in 2025, they're going to have to deplete the farm system again. Right? Like these guys that they've acquired are going to have to go. And if they are not successful next season and Ross and Mark are out the door and someone else is coming in, it's the same scenario as 2025 when Mark had things to say about, you know, the GM that was leaving at the time and there being nothing left to build the team around, right? Like they're back in the exact same spot. Except they haven't been to an ALCS.
Yeah, I mean, it's really tough to argue with that. Adam, do you want to speak a little bit on the fact that, yes, they did have a good trade deadline? It's like this front office is pretty good when the decision is made for them. You know, like if you kind of look back throughout their best acquisitions, the jobs they did the best with, it was kind of like their hand was forced and they had to either go for it or not go for it. Or every failure I feel like this front office has had has been standing pat, not doing things. What was your thought on this front office, Adam, and just their ability to get things done?
Well, unfortunately, like, I don't think Ross Atkins is gone this year. I mean, we talked about it during the week. It feels like all of the lip service we're getting from Shapiro and everyone in the front office is like, yeah, we have confidence in our guys, and continuity is a competitive advantage, and I'm sick of hearing that too. But as far as not... Oh, man. How does this team compete in 2025, which is what we're being sold right now, and I don't know if I buy it. For a long time, I didn't buy it. I was frustrated to be hearing that. But now I feel like I've talked myself onto the bandwagon, believe it or not.
I want to go there with you. I want to be there.
Okay, so follow me on this delusional journey, okay? We just played the Braves. Alex Anthopoulos, Joel, you remember him fondly. We pine over the Alex Anthopoulos days. He was GM from 2010 to 2015, and the Blue Jays had a winning percentage of .488, with the exception of his final year with the Blue Jays. That was the 2015 season where we traded for Tulowitzki, and everybody remembers how fun that summer was, right? Made the playoffs. The season ended with us getting Shapiro and then Atkins leaving for Atlanta. Joel has never recovered. I'm with you there, but here's where I think that translates into the Blue Jays and Ross Atkins. Ross Atkins is in an opportunity to extend his career in baseball, and he's got one last kick at the cat. I think if Alex Anthopoulos didn't have the 2015 season he doesn't get a job in Atlanta. I mean, it's tough to roll in with a .488 win percentage and be like, hey, I'm the wonder kid, right? But he had a great 2015, totally turned the franchise around, like sold the farm to do it, right?
Was scolded by Shapiro for it.
Of course. Hold on. But that's where, like, I find an interesting situation that we find ourselves in now with Ross Atkins, where, like, if he trades Bo Bichette this offseason, which I felt like has been an inevitability for the last 7 months, like the whole ball season, it's felt like, okay, Bo Bichette's gone. Are we trading him this deadline or in the offseason? When do we get more for him, right? Like, his value is low, but is it better to sell a low value for a year and a half, or is it a full half-season rental at a higher value is better? Like, that's the question. Ross Atkins, no matter what he gets for trading Bo Bichette, doesn't earn himself a second GM job in Major League Baseball. I don't think anybody, whoever's in the market for a GM, isn't looking at Ross Atkins' resume and going, oh, yikes, look what he did in Toronto. But man, did he ever get a good haul for Bo Bichette in the offseason? Let's bring him in. Like, he's done. He's toasted. So that makes me think, like, maybe he just doesn't trade Bo Bichette, and we do just, like, roll it back for one more year. We spend an absurd amount of money. And here's part two of this idea, is the absolute payroll numbers are a little wishy-washy, right? Especially mid-season. But from what I can see, we spent about $214 on payroll last year, $217 this year when it's all said and done. We have, according to Baseball Reference, about $180 million committed to next year, including our players for arbitration, right? Like, those numbers are up in the air. What does Vlad end up getting? What does Jordan Romano end up getting? Kirk, Varsho, we have six players for ARB. But what if we keep Bo Bichette, we don't get rid of him? What if, I mean, let's aim for the sky here. I don't think there's a chance in hell we get Juan Soto, and I'm sick of missing out on the Shohei Ohtanis. But Juan Soto, who's 17 years old and pretty good at baseball, has a lot of seasons ahead of him before he's 30. What if we just said, here, 1 year deal, $78 million? right?
That's interesting.
Shapiro goes to
like-
the ownership group. This is my whole delusion, so stick with me, okay? Shapiro goes to the board and says, look, over the next 2 seasons, you already greenlit us to spend about $450 million, right? 220-ish per year for 2 years. Here's what 2026 looks like. It's not going to be good. But if we spend $350 this year, and let's just fucking do it. Let's go get Pete Alonso. Let's go get Teoscar. Let's go get Juan Soto. We're going to give everybody higher than market value because guess what? We're Toronto and we got to do that anyways. So Juan Soto, you're going to get $50 million over 10 years from the Yankees. Cool. We'll give you $75 to play 1 year in Toronto, and then next year you can go get $50 over 10 again. Like, you're only going to be 26. There's no, like, whatever, right? And then we just fucking fill our lineup. We got 1 more year of Bo Bichette, and we just roll it out there at full fucking value of, we're going to do the most absurd sell the farm. Part of this is like, trade whoever we got to trade to get out from under the George Springer money. I don't want to pay $1 of his contract, but send him away and send Ricky Tiedemann and Aurelvis Martinez with him. You take 2 of these guys who are like, oh, maybe they're injured, maybe they're superstars. I don't care. Pay all $24 million of George Springer because we're giving that to Juan Soto for 1 year. And then you just play it out. And Ross Atkins is like, I put the fucking craziest team together in my last year. Look what I did. Even if he's not with Toronto in 26, and hopefully not, that's at least something that he can sell to a fucking other organization. You can go to the Pirates or the Reds or whoever and be like, hey, I fucking did something. Hire me.
And think about the trade deadline he'd have with that kind of assets to
Well,
sell.
that is one thing, right? Is like, worst case scenario, the team sucks, it's great on paper, but it doesn't work out. And then, yeah, you got a bunch of 1 year rentals and you go, hey, trade deadline, here's Juan Soto. We're paying 50 of his millions of dollars or whatever. Like, I don't know. Anyways, that's the end of my delusion.
Hey,
but
like
let's go
it.
hard
I like it.
and
Let's-
fucking way overspend in 2025 because it's the same
1
when
year
you
deal.
add up a small salary in 2026. Because I think, again, Baseball Reference has us charted for like 130 million committed in 2026. Because again, that's kind of the way this whole all these contracts have been structured, right? It was like, well, by the time Vlad and Bo need their money, all of our other money's coming off the books, right? So, I don't know. Let's just take advantage of that and then whatever. But yeah,
I love that
way
YOLO
over.
team. That's a good YOLO team.
Might as well, right? It'd be
This
fun.
is.
It'd be fun.
It would be fun. This is Long Toss. We are back, baby. Episode 369. Give us a like and subscribe if you are not subscribed. We are joined by the lovely baseball Jen, Lizzie McGuire from Jaybird Watching Podcast. Hey, Kami, Joel LaFlamme, and, of course, my co-host and partner in crime, Adam Mack. I don't know, I'm not seeing chat up here on my end. Is anyone else getting comments on their end? I would like to hit the YouTube comments here.
Yeah, we got one here from Michael who says, I like Adam, but I'm glad he's not our GM. So I think that must have
well, there we
been
go.
before I just went on that rant because I know he's fully on board now after that. So it must be an
there you
old
go.
comment there.
Okay, I want to, and I definitely want to know what you think, Jen, about this, but we are going to start with Joel. Jose Berrios, and we've talked about this on Lawn Toss a few times. His numbers, he is such an enigma because Jose Berrios is one of those guys that the second that you stop believing in him, he shoves it down your throat. But also, the second you believe too much in Jose Berrios, there seems to be a correction where he makes you doubt him again. Joel, are we just at the point now where the last 4 years of his contract, so he's under contract for 2 more seasons, and then he has an opt-out, which he almost certainly will not take because that is where the majority of his money is. That contract is backloaded. I think his final 2 seasons are $30 million a season. Who knows? Maybe he has some sort of amazing final season and he does go that route. But Joel, I'm curious what your thoughts on Jose Berrios is, where he slots in 2025, and if you believe he can continue to be this more or less workhorse 3.85 to a 4.2 ERA guy. Is that kind of who we can expect for the next little while?
Yeah, he's like a more expensive Simeon Woods Richardson. No, I'm sorry to go there. I'm a Berrios fan.
Yeah.
I like the workhorse style of pitcher he is. We've talked about this since the very day we picked him up. That Minnesota, they say you're going to love him, but he is consistently inconsistent. And that's this really great. His ERA will go 4.5, and it'll drop, it'll drop, it'll drop, it'll drop, it'll drop, it'll drop, and then blow back up to 4.5. And it's always that constant, roller coaster of him giving you that consistency, but then that bad stretch blows him up, and then he works his way down. And it's always that way. It's that working your way down, boom, back up, work your way down over 4 good games, and then back up. And it's that roller coaster of wondering, is that going to be your postseason start? I think that's the question mark with him. Are you going to get that really bad blow up game? We didn't. We actually had a really nice start, and then we spat all over it. But he's a workhorse to me. He's a classic workhorse pitcher. His fastball is 94, 95. He pitches. He goes out there and pitches. He needs his stuff to be good. It's what I hear classically about the 80s and 90s is like, on your good games, you may have over 10 of them over the stretch of a year, right? 10 games, you're mediocre. 10 games, you have terrible stuff, right? And it's that classic pitcher who's going to be able to, conjure up some magic when the stuff isn't there to give you those 6-7 innings. He's that type of pitcher. He's that type of pitcher who eats up innings. He always has for the course of his career. And I think that that's a commodity that isn't sexy, but that's a commodity that really helps the team when it comes to team pitching. Eating up innings, being out there. I'm going to have to eat this one. I'm going to have to eat this one. Bassett does it a lot too. And they're like, don't take me out at 65 pitches. I can be competitive here for 2 more. I've got tricks in my bag that I can go to in the 5th and 6th, and I can try to not tax the bullpen here. And that's a commodity that it's not sexy. It doesn't get you money when it comes to free agency or anything like that. But you need pitchers like that who can eat up innings and not tax your bullpen, especially a year like this where your bullpen is already massively taxed, right? What is it if Berrios isn't giving you, was he at 170 innings? He'll probably get to 200 or close to 190.
176 right now.
176, he's got, maybe 3 more starts in him, maybe 4.
Yeah, he hit 189 last year, which was a career high outside of his 2019 season. And yeah, on pace to do that again. He pitched 172 in 2022 and even 70 innings for the Jays after that trade deadline in 2021. So he's been a horse.
I'd argue 180 is the new 200.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that too. Lizzie, where are you at on Jose Berrios?
Yeah, he's a guy who I like him a lot, but he was always a guy I was like, I think it's like we're either going to get 6 runs in 1 inning or 6 innings and 1 run. It's like you never know. But like this has been his best year for I think since like 2021. He has got the lowest ERA of our starters currently.
3.51 by the way.
And that's great. And so it's like I think out of all the things to worry about, he's not one of them, right? Like right now, like I'm not worrying about him right now. I'm worrying about shoring up some more starters to give him, I don't think he's the main guy. I think he's the second guy or the third guy, right? But like he is a fundamental piece of contending and eating up innings and being consistent, even when he's a bit bloopy. Like I know that if it's a Berrios start, I don't know which way it's going to go. But I know it could go really well. Like there's a chance to go either way. But I think that, I like him. I, again, like his kind of like gritty workhorse style. I'm happy we signed him. I know a lot of people were kind of fussy that we signed him for so long or re-signed him. I wasn't one of them. And I'm happy with how he's performed this season.
Yeah, honestly, his peripheral metrics sometimes have been iffy at best, where I keep looking at his FIP and thinking, will the other shoe drop? And this year it really hasn't. Jen, how confident are you in Jose Berrios going forward? Like, just next year, is he going to be able to slot into that number 2 or number 3 starter role, or would you prefer to see somebody shoulder that weight instead? You know, Kevin Gausman and another guy at the top.
So I've been really adamant that they add starting pitching, right? And that they add a number 1 or a number 2. I think that was one of the downfalls of this team coming into this season. I don't think they had, well, it's obvious they had no plan, if things didn't go well with Manoah, for instance, right? Or if any of their starters got injured. There was no real plan there. So I mean, I guess I'm going to answer the question by sort of asking a question of you guys, which is that, if you're looking at the way things stand right now, Jose Barrios, Kevin Gausman, Chris Bassett, Bowden Francis, and Yariel Rodriguez, are you comfortable with that as a starting rotation next season?
No.
No.
And if you're not, who's out? And it's not necessarily one of the last 2 that I named, right? But who's out? Who's in the bullpen? Who's being sent down? Who's being traded? What is the fix there? Right? So I don't think it's necessarily that whether or not, I mean, I know he has his contract, but I don't think it's necessarily whether or not we trust Berrios, in a vacuum, but it's what does the actual rotation look like? Because depending on what that looks like changes my answer to the question on Berrios.
And that's what's really interesting about this offseason that's upcoming is that the truth is this front office is going to need to be very creative and thread a needle that I worry they aren't capable of doing. And I know, Jen, you mentioned something that kind of piqued my interest a little bit here when you were like, who is gone? And I hadn't really thought of what if they do something wild and move a Bassett and Gausman and in bringing somebody else in, right? Because you automatically think it's Francis or it's Yariel that is the odd man out, but maybe that's not the case. Maybe they are big fish hunting and will move a big fish to fill another need. Adam, when you look at this starting rotation, is there a guy that you can see them moving? Kevin Gausman, probably the highest valued dude in that rotation.
Well, I don't know. I'm kind of down on Gausman generally. I think I feel better about Jose Berrios over the next 2 years than I do Kevin Gausman. I mean, I'm with Jen that, we got to bring in starting pitching. But so for me, Bowden Francis and Yariel Rodriguez are both gone, but that's not because we brought in a 4 and a 5 to replace them. It's because we brought in a 1 and a 2, and everybody bumps down. Give me a rotation where Berrios is pitching to a 3.9 ERA as our third starter, and I'm thrilled with that, right? Same thing with Gausman. I don't know if Gausman pitches below 4 ERA again in his career. I don't know. I'm just... The money for Berrios, is less than Gausman. I think he's still, even in
this year,
what field... Well, what is it the rest of the year? Gausman's 24 this year, 23 and 23. Berrios is 17 this year, 18 and 18. And then there's a 2-year option for 24 right? And 24. So even at the tail end, 24 and 24, for the last 2 years of Jose Berrios, I think is whatever. It is what it is. So I guess if you're worried about the length of the contract, but I'm still more worried about what does next year look like for us? How do we compete next year? Because we can't even seem to build a plan for 1 year successful season, let alone 5. But yeah, I don't know what's the trade value of Gausman as a... How old is he now? He is
33.
33. He'll be 34 next year. A 34-year-old pitcher who's on the decline and numbers are dropping. His game log looks pretty horrific. If we want to talk about Berrios being consistently inconsistent, I feel like maybe we have a little bit of rose-colored glasses for Kevin Gausman based on like the Cy Young level season he gave us in 2023, like where he just felt unhittable, and the year before, like. But Gausman is not pitching good for us, so I don't think he should get a pass if we're gonna crap on Jose Berrios. But
Well, that's kind of what I'm saying here, right? Like when you look at that rotation as a whole, that is definitely not, in my opinion, a rotation that's going to compete, for or really be truly competitive for a wild card spot.
no, but isn't that how you keep building your rotation anyways? Though is like you go out and you get good guys, and then as they decline, you keep getting guys at the top,
well,
right?
Yeah, that's what you should be doing. But to your point and everybody else's point is the front office going to be able to do that?
And the options aren't coming internally. They're coming from signings. These are all signed guys taking up big, massive amounts of your salary to fill this pitching rotation. And they're got through free agency. Rodriguez, Bassett, Gausman, Berrios, all acquired through free agency, not internally built. So those options aren't coming. Manoah, but Manoah has not been something to depend on over the last 2 seasons. So those options aren't. And then, Tiedemann. Our expectations for Tiedemann have now been reset because of Tommy John, right? He's pushed back the entire season. So our hopes that he'd be coming in at this point in the year and giving us, hey, Tiedemann's an option next year at the 3-4 spot. And you finding out that internal option isn't. So we have to go out again and find this 1-2 option in free agency, which is really, really difficult to bring in these types of free agents here, especially 1 or 2 options that want to come to Toronto in those prime seasons when they could go somewhere else for a lot more money. And the thing about like Berrios is, I know this is a classic old school stat like innings pitched, but he's got an insane winning percentage. 566 over his career, 15-9 this year on a losing team.
Yeah.
Like there's something to be said about a team that goes out for you and fights and wins and you win. And he's always been a winner. In fact, I think his only legitimate losing season was last year, and he had a 3.65 ERA and pitched really well. Just really wasn't acquiring wins. So it's like, that's a guy who's 30. You've got 2 guys in Gausman and Bassett who are later in their career. So I think that's where you have to make a move. You have to make a move on the age, and then maybe combine that with some of the youth. Maybe combine moving a Bassett and a Francis, or one of both, right, to try to acquire that larger piece. And but I don't know, Rodriguez he pitched great today, and I really
He did.
I have expectations. And Bowden as well put together a rough start to the season, has really found something, and so credit to him. So but
would love to hear what all of you on YouTube have to say about our pitching right now. I will throw to Adam to get to some of those comments in a second here, but I will finish on this. Just my thoughts on Bowden Francis and Yariel Rodriguez. And I'm kind of with you, Joel, where I think there is something in both of these guys. And these are the type of guys you need on your team to excel and compete at a competitive level and actually be competitive for a playoff spot. But you need these guys in the weeds a little bit, and it is super unfair to expect Bowden Francis to maybe start the season in AAA next year. He does have an option, by the way, and with what he is doing, maybe going out and getting a pitcher and having Yariel as your long man, who you know darn well is going to wind up in that starting rotation, taking starts at some point. We've even been pretty lucky with health in this starting rotation and have seen more injuries than we did last year. And then kind of the same thing with Francis. Again, super unfair to start him in AAA, but maybe having that kind of depth is what this team needs to excel in 2025, which, again, threading that needle for the front office, unsure if they can do it. Adam, I'll let you dig into YouTube here for a second.
Yeah, Tuesday with Johnny says Corbin Burns would be a good pickup. Francis as a number 5 is fine. Again, the consistency issues with Jose Berrios. I mean, you look at Corbin Burns, had an ERA of 2.4 up until July 20th. In his 6 starts in August and September, his ERA is 6.46. So finding guys that are just consistently elite is a tough task. I'm not saying
And an
Corbin Burns
expensive
isn't
task.
good. It's expensive, and you're really hoping that you guess right and that the stars just kind of work out. So it's a tough task. Francis as a number 5 is fine. Is it? Do you guys like if our number 5 next year is Bowden Francis?
And I think the sample size is like, for me, of his winning is too small to count on him. That's like me being like, I don't know. So maybe if you have a backup plan, I don't hate that at the start of the season, as long as there's a backup plan in place. I think he earned it. But again, for me, it is too soon to tell.
He's earned an opportunity to work his way onto the out of spring training. He's earned the opportunity to earn the opportunity, if that makes sense.
Yes.
But I do know that this team thinks very highly of Yariel Rodriguez, and I think they're going to do everything they can this offseason to work with him. And, like they did, with Kikuchi, an offseason ago and so forth, and see what they can get out of him.
Jen, where are you at on Yariel yourself? I mean, he's such an interesting case because he didn't pitch. He's never pitched in Major League Baseball until this season. He didn't pitch last year because of contract problems in Japan. He has shown signs of brilliance, and he has shown signs of pull your collar. Where do you feel Yariel Rodriguez is at in his development? Because I do think, and I think the panel has kind of echoed this a little bit, but I do think that he is going to be something in the future. It's just, is he going to be something soon enough for it to matter?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know, but it's unfair to try to evaluate him because, as you said, he has never pitched in the majors and he didn't pitch last year. So he was put into a difficult position this year, right? Thrown into, the rotation and on a team that has had essentially an identity crisis, and, everything was falling apart and people were being traded. And there must have been quite a bit of stress going around with all of that. And there he is trying to, just even get his legs under him in terms of pitching and innings pitched, and knew he'd be on a limit and there was an injury and so on and so forth. So I think he has a ton of promise. Let me backtrack. I think he has an absolute ton of promise. I think he's really, really intriguing. I would really love to see what he could be after a full off season of work down at the Florida complex. And he lives in Florida, I believe. So that is where he's going to be spending basically the majority, if not his entirety of his off season. And I'd really like to see how he looks coming into spring training. But I think he, more than Bowden Francis, is going to be looked at as being a real piece moving forward.
Did anyone have anything to add before we change topics here?
Can we bring back Yusei Kikuchi, and just because he seemed to like it here, he seems like a prime candidate for. He's gone, but would love to come back if we paid him fair market value. And then we just say, hey,
Yusei Kikuchi is a high enough addition.
Yeah, if we just say, hey, do whatever the Astros told you to do, because it worked in Houston. They figured out how to use you. Just write it all down and come back, please. I mean, he's not the number one that bumps everybody down, but I'm fine with Yusei at 4 again.
In this scenario, Adam, and I'm not opposed to bringing back Kikuchi, especially considering this rotation could use a lefty in there somewhere.
Go sign Corbin Burns and bring Yusei back as our number 5.
That's what I was going to say.
Now I'm thrilled.
You need another piece on top of that. Okay.
I strongly feel like we need a net of 2 starting pitchers this offseason. If we're moving Bassett and or Gossman, okay, now we need to bring back 3 or 4. I don't buy into the Bowden Francis has earned us a chance to earn a chance, because that just tells me we're not going to spend any money and we're going to leave a 5th spot open and have people fight for it. And okay, like that's fine if we're not competing next year. But like we can't do another off season of like, wow, we have 7 guys that might play second base, and we have look at all of our depth, and like Alek Manoah, don't forget about him, and like no, like it's because it's by the time you realize, oh, none of them can do it, it's too late and we're fucked. Like Bowden Francis is the prime candidate of he's playing well when the games mean diddly squat, right? Like there was all that like hesitation on, oh, Vlad's playing good, but now that the games don't mean anything, it's way easier to play when there's no pressure. And I just think Bowden Francis and the results he's been turning in is like the biggest red flag for me of like there at the start of the year when it's like, hey, you might get to stay in the majors all year, like good luck, and he goes out to every outing and says, how many times did he get blown up in the first or second inning and then just imploded by the second or third, and then he's out of the game because we're like, hey, these games mean something. We can't afford to just go down 9-0 in the second inning, so we got to pull them when we're down 6-0 and try and salvage it. Whereas these games, it's literally like, hey, good morning, Bowden. You're giving us 100 pitches no matter what happens. And then we saw it in the Phillies game. Like, that was the first real offensive test he's had. He gave up 2 dingers in the first, 3 runs in the first inning,
and then
settled in nicely.
Yeah.
Because, again, he knows, like, he probably got a pep talk in the dugout of, like, hey, it's all good. It happens. We still need 85 more pitches from you. And he's like, okay, sure. So that would be my concern with Bowden Francis going into next season is I still don't think, I don't know, maybe he can. I'm skeptical. Same reason I'm skeptical about Spencer Horwitz and all these kids. And I just don't think we should pencil in a question mark at our number 5 spot if next year is a compete year. Next year, the 6 and 7 can be the question marks. That can be the, hey, we have like 5 options for depth in AAA. Cool, that's a great spot to be in. But I don't like the idea of like Alek Manoah and Ricky Tiedemann and Bowden Francis and all these guys with fucking upside are going to compete for 200 innings next year? No, I don't want that.
So there's a common saying that this little rant of yours made me think of a common saying on the Canadian comedy scene when it comes to open mics, and it's none of this matters. And it's just kind of a mindset of like, yeah, you're trying new jokes. It might go well. It might go badly. You're in a bar with a bunch of people who are hammered and regulars and just want to escape life anyways. Does any of this matter? No. And what you said, Adam, made me think of that just because it's like, it's the end of the season and none of this does matter for them. And there isn't that pressure on them to put the screws down, right? Go ahead, Jen.
It doesn't matter in terms of this team's trajectory this season, but it does matter to these individual players, particularly the ones that are on the fringes of having a major league career or not, and want to go out there and perform and make the most of whatever opportunity that they have. And maybe knowing that the actual outcome does take some pressure off. I don't know, because I'm not a professional athlete and I'm not the one out there trying to navigate my way through a game, right? But I guarantee that it does mean something to these guys who aren't guaranteed anything, right? I guarantee they're putting pressure on themselves. I guarantee that they feel every failure that they're experiencing.
The process matters. The process does matter. That's yes.
Yeah, I agree with you that, like, on an individual basis, it matters to them. But I'm just saying there is a practical difference between, like, how quick they get the hook. Like, hey, if I go...
with this bullpen as is.
Yeah, if I'm Spencer Horwitz and I go, oh, I went 0 for 5 today, like, yeah, I'm bummed out about that. But I'm not worried about getting sent down to AAA and Joey Votto taking my spot. Yeah. That's all I mean from like the pressure is not off. Like, yeah, they're trying their hardest and it means something to them personally. And yes, they're competing for jobs next year, either with the Jays or with another organization. I get that. I just don't think that there's the same level of like any misstep and I'm gone. Whereas that would be the case in April of like, hey, like if you don't smarten up, we're gonna put Daniel Vogelbach in. I don't know. I just think that's a big deal from getting a reduced workload. Like we watched Santiago Espinal have the same thing as soon as it was a timeshare at second base with Cavan and whoever the other kid was. It was like once second base was his, you know, he can settle in and just be like a fun, good second baseman. But once it's like, hey, we got 3 of you here that are going to go for second, and, you know, when you're only playing 2 games a week, and then you go 0 for 6 in those 2 games, it's like, oh shit, like I might not play next week. It doesn't mean you're trying any less hard, but it is like a weird psychological pressure to be like,
To go on the top of that, Adam, there's a lot of competition that just doesn't really need to be there. We were talking about the more expensive version of something else. It's just like Spencer Horowitz, to go to this, has been Spencer Horowitz for about 3 years now.
Yeah.
Okay? Did we need to get Joey Votto, Daniel Vogelbach, Justin Turner, Brandon Belt? Or should we have understood that this kid's about this good? He's about that level of production. We created 4 extra players worth of competition for one spot and spent $45-50 million to do that when the option internally was available. So it's like, the competition is one thing, but having competition that makes sense is another. And we're at our best when like these pitchers are, when we have Ross Stripling pitching the way Ross Stripling was pitching as this hybrid long man and then could take a start for you. Like there's a situation where I look at Yariel and it's like they talk about the bullpen being used more as like, look at a pitcher who can come in over the course of a week 2 to 3 times and pitch 2 innings, right? Maybe you're not trying to acquire those innings. Maybe you're not trying to acquire 120 innings through starting pitching. Maybe spots where you come in and you got through the first inning really well. Let's go out for the second. And he ate up 3 innings there on 42 pitches, and he was really, really efficient. And we let the dice roll from inning to inning. It doesn't feel like there's that feel of play. Oh, this is the opener seems thrown away. That's a really great idea that just, we're not going to do that anymore. Oh, let's start a lefty. They have 2 out of 3 lefties start for them. Let's start a lefty in a relief position, then let's have the righty attack the bottom half, and maybe that gets him another inning. Just common sense baseball stuff just seems to be lost on this team. So yeah, I don't know.
We are 1 hour into Long Toss. This is episode 369. We are back, baby, and it has been a great little chat here. We have Baseball Jen, we have Lizzie McGuire, we have Adam Mack and Joel LaFlamme with us. We are well over 60 viewers watching right now. We appreciate you, the grounds crew. Hit that like button, and if you have not yet subscribed, do so. So we will move on to the next topic, which is farm system related, which has been an Achilles heel of this front office, although I will give credit where credit is due. They drafted Arjun Namala in the first round last year, and he's starting to look like the kid might pan out. He had some injury problems early on in the season, and since coming back in June, the kid has hit 14 dingers. He's at 17 home runs in the Florida Coast League right now, playing rookie ball. Since 2010, only 3 shortstops have hit 14 or more home runs at that level. Fernando Tatis Jr., Xander Bogaerts, and Arjun Namala. So he is in very good company there, although I will say he's 18 years old. I guess the reason I bring up Arjun Namala is that this front office has lacked high-end prospects. And Jen, this is something we've talked about all season long, right? Is that, yes, they have done really well with these guys who are 26, 27, the Horowitzes, the Nathan Lukes, the guys who, like, you're just like, okay, they can find these Davis Schneiders type that are going to work for a while. Will they work forever? I don't know. They're not really a hyped or sought-after prospect on the ranking system. Arjun Namala, however, opening eyes. Where are you at on 18-year-olds when it comes to their development? Like, do you kind of like what they've done, which is just kind of left him there to dominate? And do you see him at 19 next season starting in maybe high A, or do you think you just keep like? This is a front. I know this is getting messy in me throwing it to you, but I'm trying to draw the picture of like, how much do you trust in the development system, and how much do you want to see out of this kid before he gets to the next level, knowing his age?
18's just a baby.
Right?
He's so young. And so I don't think you can draw any conclusions from what an 18-year-old is doing, but he has been impressive. I mean, I think in the last half of the season, his OPS is something like 941 or something like that.
Yeah.
As an 18-year-old, he's a particularly young player even in that league. And, he started off quite poorly this year, right? Like his play was quite poor. They challenged him and he's risen to that challenge. And so that says something about his own natural ability, but also his mentality. So I don't know. When was the last time in this organization we've seen an 18-year-old come up through the ranks and develop into something?
Vladdy,
Okay.
probably, right? Or Bo? Like,
Okay.
it's a good question. It's
But
a good
other
question.
than the two of them, does anybody jump out?
As an 18-year-old, only Vlad.
Yeah. No, I don't think so.
Right? So, I mean, it'll be really interesting to see because, Vlad and Bo have a very different pedigree in terms of just baseball genetics, let's say. So it'll be really, really interesting to see, how they do bring him along. I'd love to see him at the next level next season.
Mm-hmm.
Why not?
He
Lizzie,
strikes out a
Arjun
ton.
Yeah, go ahead, Adam.
Just not to throw like a damn blanket on the Arjun Namala talk, but he like Jen said,
He is
has
18. That is like
Yeah.
the one thing that.
yeah. I mean, okay, like Jen said though, like he has done a lot better in the last month. Like back to August 1st, his OPS is 879. I mean, if we shave a couple days off, I'm sure we could get could find a sample size where the OPS is over 900 in the past 4 weeks instead of 5, but just for whatever it's worth. He's got this season 17 home runs, like you said, with a 229 batting average, 30 walks, and 113 strikeouts.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's swingy.
In
He's like
81
pretty
games.
swingy. Yeah.
So that's where, like, okay, a lot of the power can come if you're just trying to fucking crush the ball. But I mean, just if the talk is like about escalating him up the leagues, okay, well, it's not gonna be pretty if he's just getting K'd all the time.
High A. We're not talking about promoting him to Buffalo,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
but every league is a new test, and I'm just saying if you strike out 113 times in low A, the pitching is going to be incrementally better. So I just think it's cool he's hit 17 home runs, but I'm like, he's still miles away from my radar of like, what does it mean to the Blue Jays?
Yeah, I think that like I think this is indicative of the state of our farm system. It's like we have this one thing, so we're looking at it, but it's like he should be it's nice to have. I'm happy he's there. I'm happy we have him. I'm not sure what's going to happen. But I really wish this didn't matter. I wish we had depth to not even think about this. But I don't know. He was what, player of the month in August?
He was.
That's
Yeah, he
that's
was,
good.
yeah.
I mean, good for him. It's good for him that he turned it around and he's getting some results. And like, I mean, plate discipline probably has to learn because he's 18 and he was probably crushing before that as well. But I don't think we should put too much hopes on this young lad at this point.
I teach teenagers, so yeah, the discipline will come. The maturity will come, and that is, like I said, I think he's already on the younger side in that Florida State League, anyways, right? So, we'll see how that goes. It will be interesting to see what they do with him. As far as like long term, let's be honest, the odds of him actually ever playing for the Toronto Blue Jays are low, right? And I don't mean that he'll flame out. I mean that he might be traded
Hmm.
or whatever the case might be, right? So I guess we'll see, but it is nice that there is this young guy that they drafted that seems to actually have some promise. Like there's a bit of glimmer in an otherwise kind of dank system.
It's interesting because the prospect rankings have really changed from last season when you saw Ricky Tiedemann at the top of the list for the Jays. Of course, Tommy John surgery and missing all of the rest of this season and most of next season has hit his value. Aroldis Martinez went from third ranked last year. He's sitting at number one right now, which is also interesting because of his PED suspension. He is actually back with Buffalo right now. He hit 3 doubles actually in this game today. So, I mean, I guess you cross your fingers and hope the best for him. You know, as a Blue Jays fan, you hope that black mar that he's has on him now for cheating, eventually he can play his way out of it. Very similar to how Fernando Tatis Jr. did. Trey Savage is another guy. He's number 2 on this prospect ranking, drafted in the first round this year. So, like, you look at their rankings, and there's so few guys. Like, there's Jake Bloss that we're probably going to see, Jonathan Clase, and the rest of the top 10, 2026 is probably when they arrive, outside of, like, maybe Adam Macko blows AAA up next year to the point where they call him up. But there's not a lot of guys that you're like, you know what? The future looks bright next year, maybe down the road. Joel, when you look at prospects in general, what is your view on prospects? Are you a big prospect guy, or are you like, show me first and then I'll worry about it?
Oh yeah, I prove it up here. Prove it up here. I would rather have proven commodities over prospects any day of the week. I still, whenever it comes to this team and what we draft, I always go back to us saying no to Ben Joyce 4 times in 2022. You know, just 105.5 wasn't sexy 4 times in a row. Said no, 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 4 times. 4 times
Especially when you look at this
105.5,
bullpen on fire as
right?
is right now, and you're like, huh.
It was 105.5. was just sitting there, and he went to the third round. We had 2 picks in the first, 2 picks in the second, and we didn't go for 105.5. And he's just ferocious. He's a story all onto himself. The way that he grabs highlights. How is 100? This is pitching. This is the ultimate dice roll. Every single arm's going to explode. You got to consider it that way. So just go after the sexiest one. Why not? It's instant contribution. Like the guy was going to contribute instantly. 105.5 plays. You don't need a second pitch. How many balls thrown 105.5 are hit? What's the batting average on one pitch? You got a one pitch pitcher. And we said no to that. So I think about all the guys that have been gotten since, and I'm just like, what's the identity? What are we trying for? How are we trying to win? We spend a lot of money on starting pitching. Our expectations last year of what the starting pitching did, right? Like, we haven't been able to match. We had generational starting pitching last year. The best starting pitching this team's ever seen. Do nothing with it. The best offense that this team has practically ever seen. We do nothing with it. We can't put these things are 2 years separated from each other, and nowhere is one present where the other one was, right? Like, two completely different styles within 2 years now to being a basement dweller in our division. So it's all identity. How are we going to win? Draft those players, draft that mentality. Until then, until we get somebody who tells me how we're trying to win, they're just names.
Plus, it would have been sweet to throw Ben Joyce with 105 out against Whit Merrifield.
Just tell Joyce, don't worry about where it goes. It's fine.
Kirk, just set up in the middle of the plate and worry about
Hope
picking
for the
Put your
best.
glove up.
Yes.
Can I just add to the Arjun talk? Because you mentioned Aroldis Martinez, so I thought that's an interesting comparable. So I pulled up his stats from when he was in Dunedin, low A, as a 19-year-old. Played 71 games. So Arjun Amala is at 81 games this season with 16 home runs. Orelvis Martinez is a 19-year-old. Through 71 games, had 19 home runs, but a 279 batting average, and only 85 strikeouts in fewer games versus 113 strikeouts for Arjun Namala. Now, when Orelvis Martinez got promoted to Vancouver that season, his batting average went from 279 down to 214, and his OPS went from 942 down to 773. So, just framing the picture.
Reality is harsh.
Well, every level of ball gets harder, and then what was the thing we said with Orelvis Martinez? Well, why isn't he playing for the Blue Jays right now? It's because he still wasn't ready to hit properly. Like, the power was there, but it's a different thing to actually be a hitter.
Perhaps for a reason.
So.
Yeah.
When you're increasing your testosterone,
Yeah.
you're probably going to hit for more power. So
All
right.
it will be interesting to see. I mean, I know he hit 3 doubles today, right? So
Yeah.
but it will be interesting to see how he progresses.
Now that you mention this, Jen, where's everybody's like enthusiasm for Orelvis Martinez heading into next season? Like on a scale of 1 to 10. Yeah, because I'm at pretty much 0 or 1.
I nothing. I got nothing.
Yeah. I really have no patience for cheaters.
Yeah.
To be completely honest, they all know.
He just wanted a baby.
Well, it's a fertility drug that is for females to take if you actually want to increase the chance of having a baby. In biological males, it increases your testosterone production and thus your muscle development. So let's be really clear on what he was taking and why it is on the banned substance list, right? So they know what they can and cannot take, and they have 100 doctors they can ask if they are for some reason unclear about what they can take. So it's really difficult to get behind this guy right now.
It is, and I agree with everyone's sentiment of like, this is a tough one, and I'm at about a 0 for my enthusiasm with Orelvis. I will say he didn't assault anyone. I'm totally winnable again, like if he comes out and just lights the world on fire, I'm gonna be a fan.
I would be a higher than a 0 at this point if he had just been honest about what he had taken.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I did. Yeah, yes, I'm very, very sorry. And, I will do everything I can to earn everybody's trust again, right? But rather than telling this nonsense story.
I'm low on him, but maybe for a slightly different reason. Like, I think, like, cheating is bad, generally. I'm with you there. But, like, for me, it just throws all of the hype around the numbers he was putting up. Like, we touted him as like, oh my God, this 20-year-old who's playing with 22-year-olds is leading the league in home. Like, this has never been done before. And it's like, well, yeah, no wonder. And we didn't know that. So just like all of that hype is just, I'm so deflated on all that.
Too, right? Like on
it's like, why were we ever excited about this guy in the first place? Like, so, yeah.
No, but that's what I'm saying, right? Like, because he was cheating, we don't know what those numbers would otherwise look like. We don't know for how long he was cheating. We have absolutely no way of knowing any of that right now. Yeah. So, I guess we'll see how it goes. But he lost, I know he worked out down in Florida, but he lost an entire year of development.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And that really also screwed over the team.
Yeah, like if he had just said something homophobic, at least we could have known the numbers were real and just traded him to Boston for full value.
Yeah.
All right.
The platoon.
We are about 40 minutes away from the end of Long Toss.
I'm trying to get us canceled as quick as I can.
Yeah, that's right. Wrap it up early. Do really appreciate everyone. The Grounds crew has been following along. Hit that like button and subscribe. It definitely helps the channel. So thrilled to be back talking baseball with Baseball Jen, Lizzie McGuire, Joel LaFlemme, and our main man, Adam Mack here. Before we go around the horn and get everyone's topic for today, I'm going to dive into this Mets series. So, the New York Mets coming to Toronto. The Blue Jays playing them tomorrow and Tuesday. And is it a 2-game series or it is a 3-game?
3-game series against the Mets.
It is. Yeah. John Gibbons makes his return to Toronto. And I mean, I think everybody loves Gibby. Jen, maybe I'll start with you here because I know that you have fondness in your heart for the man. The Mets are in the middle of literally one of the strangest fucking seasons I can think of. They had literally buried themselves in April, get a fast food mascot to throw out the pitch, and since Grimace has done so, they've literally completely turned their season around on the backs of guys like Jose Iglesias. They are getting pitching performances out of dudes that you're like double checking their names. And not just doing well, they are neck and neck right now with the Atlanta Braves, who was chosen as the juggernaut of all of baseball this year. So, Jen, when you look at the Mets, number one, happy for Gibby, but what are your thoughts on them and just your thoughts on this series as we're about to start it on Monday here?
Yeah, I mean, it was really sort of interesting, the Blue Jays playing, the Alex Anthopoulos' team, followed by John Gibbons' team, and essentially their performance against both might actually dictate which of the two, get that
takes
final
the playoffs,
right, get that final wild card. So it's kind of just a fun little, I guess, backdrop story to it all. And yeah, I mean, the Mets are such a crazy team, right? With such a crazy owner. Like this just extremely wealthy guy who also loves baseball, right? And just will toss money around like it's crumbs and hope, he's built something that will actually win. I'm really rooting for them. Like for that reason alone, right? Because they're just such a fun, kind of crazy, messy team, I think. And then, if you want to add that personal aspect to it, I have so much respect for John Gibbons. And, for reasons that I won't get into, I cannot tell you how much respect I have for that man. And so, yeah, I really, for multiple reasons, I really do. The Jays could lose all three and I'd be thrilled.
Jen, Mets over the Braves?
Yeah.
Lizzie, Mets over the Braves?
Mets all day.
Adam?
Let's play spoilers. Let's take the Jays.
Okay.
Oh, he's saying over the Braves.
Braves.
Oh,
Mets
sorry.
or Braves?
I
Make
thought.
the playoffs.
Oh, yeah. Braves, I guess.
Joel, Mets or Braves?
I'm loyal to my Braves.
Yeah, there you go. I knew that.
Anthopoulos, he's my guy.
We got a dead split here. I think I'm gonna go with the Mets because John Boy's Jolly Olive comes on the show and makes time for us. He's great to chat with, and I just love Gibby. So I got to go with the Mets over the Braves for the playoff spot. We'll circle back to the chat here and see what you folks are thinking, Braves or Mets here. Lizzie, this series coming up here. It's interesting that... Do you think John Gibbons gets a standing ovation from the crowd?
I'm going to be there, and I will be standing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. The thing about the Gibby times is, man, he felt like one of us. You know what I mean? Like, that man, he loved baseball. And every time he would get out to fight for his players, I remember there was 1 week, 2015, where he got ejected every single game that week. And I was like, and I like saved it as my desktop for a while, and it's like, it felt like, I don't know, it just felt like he was his own entity to root for. It's like he was a part of us. I understood why he had to go. I miss him dearly. So yes, I will standing ovation Gibby every day. Like, he even had a Jays podcast. Like, he loved the team. He loved Toronto. And then one time he did fight with Josh Donaldson, but then they both covered it up, and I was like, respect.
Yeah, that's right. the way it's supposed to be. It's funny
Yeah.
because we had Gibby on the podcast. We even talked with him about Shea Hillenbrand, who we also had on the podcast. And Gibby, honestly, it was so crazy because Hillenbrand was such a piece of shit to him. And Gibby was just like, you know what? We all go through weird times. I wish him nothing but the best. You know?
Yeah, that's
He
it,
even
like-
was like,
My favorite Gibby quote of all time. I say it all the time in my personal life. They'll be like, Gibby, you lost that game, 42-1. And he's just like, I don't know, it's baseball. And then he'd waddle off, shuffle away, and I'm like, yeah, that is baseball.
My favorite quote from him is one I actually can't share because it was an off the record quote, but so much respect. The players, I think, loves him. And you're right. I understand why he moved on or was moved on, but yeah, he will absolutely get a standing ovation. There's no doubt about it.
I know friend of the show, Keegan Matheson, actually had, and it's going to be in his book, so not to spoil it, but he told it on a long toss, or I guess a Baseball Town live show, so I feel like we can get away with sharing it, but Gibby loves his red wine and would always like fill a cup with red wine and he's the only guy I know that like just sits around if guys are having Bud Lights and stuff like that and he's just like drinking a full tumbler of red wine in the clubhouse. Just love that.
Lovely.
Joel, would love to know your thoughts on the upcoming series here. You think the Blue Jays take this one? You think we can play spoiler?
Well, I don't know. That's tough. New York is inspired right now, and
They've won 9 in a row.
To go to the Gibbons element of things, that team was a ragtag group in its foundations, right? Like the Batistas, the Encarnaciones. Like these guys weren't. The wins came with juggernaut teams in the Red Sox and the Yankees being built off of financing and expectations, and those Blue Jays teams were cast aside 30-year-old veterans who weren't given respect in Cincinnati or Pittsburgh. Hell, like Batista he found out that there was a place to go aside from being an fourth outfielder in Pittsburgh. There's still a place to go in the major leagues beyond that. And it was Toronto, and it was 6 straight All-Star games. And I feel like it was that you listen to the way that Yankees would talk about Joe Torre and how he would come in and say, oh, don't worry about it. This is the anniversary of the time I hit into 4 double plays. And he'd have this way of de-escalating the pressure and putting it on himself and making light of the situation, because to carry that pressure in 162 games, it doesn't make any sense. You have to be able to take your lumps and then get rid of them and pick it up the next day with a fresh slate. And I feel like when you look at the Mets, the team the expectation that they had last year with the finances that they put on that team, and then the expectations this year, and for them to be closer this year than last year, just shows you everything about baseball. It shows you everything that you can't count your chickens before they hatch, and talent can be as much as it is on paper, as much as it is a fast food mascot coming in and just making you feel like you want to come to the ballpark every day. Right. And the Mets have that right now. And that can be as much of a winning recipe as the best built team.
The Mets almost give me hope for next year because, and this is the thing, and Adam, I'll throw to you here and then maybe you can get into some YouTube comments, but I know it shouldn't give me hope. But that's what teams that have no business winning do, right? They give everyone else. They found that magic, that chemistry. They already had enough talent on the team to move them forward. A down year from the Braves, and they're right there. So, Adam, do you think that there's a world where we can see all of these things come together for the Jays in the same sort of way? And then if you want to maybe chime in on YouTube here.
Well, I was going to jokingly take the Braves in this question, as I get caught distracted again. Like your question is then just not the Mets Jays series. It is just, do the Mets, what they're doing, inspire hope for the Jays next year?
Yeah. And any thoughts you have on Gibby?
Yeah, I like Gibby. Gibby's a good guy. I always had fun watching Gibby teams. I think he's too old for the way baseball is nowadays, and so I don't think that's coming back. Like, I don't think there's a spot for him to go, like,
To go manage somewhere, yeah.
to go manage somewhere and to be the guy and whatever. But yeah, lots of love for Gibby. I will say in the YouTube comments, Michelle says Gibby's ovation last summer at Jose's induction was equal to Jose. So
Yeah,
for whatever
wow.
that's worth, likely to get the standing ovation in Toronto tomorrow. In our poll in the chat, Mets or Braves for the wild card, 57% said Mets.
Okay.
But then Johnny wanted clarification. Is this who we want to win the wild card or who we think will win the wild card? So I have no clarification.
We don't need clarification. However you want to interpret that poll.
There you go.
Very scientific here on the walk-up.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
exactly. All right. We are about 25 minutes away from the end of the show. Please hit that like button and subscribe if you have not. We have been over 70 viewers at points in this cast, sitting at 57 right now. So thank you so much to all of you on the grounds crew following along here. We are now going to go to our topics. So we go around the horn here and we get everyone's a baseball topic normally, but it doesn't have to be specific to that. So we'll start with you, Joel. What do you have for us today, my man?
I talked a lot about identity and stuff like that, which was kind of going to be my question of like, how do we see us winning? But I honestly will instead shift by and take the last category I think that we aren't going to tackle and use that as a segue point off of the last one. You asked, how do you see the Blue Jays winning next year? And I'm like, well, if we play in the AL Central and have all those games against the White Sox, the White Sox can turn any team into a winner, right? So that's kind of where my hope lies. It's like, if you've got a team that is that bad, all of a sudden, every team in that division who were terrible the year before all have great winning records. And you're just
a little stat here, Joel, to back you up on that. So the AL Central is substantially below 500, and they have 4 teams above 500. So the White Sox doing some real heavy lifting there on just handing out wins to their division rivals.
Yeah, I guess my question to the panel will be the one that you were going to pose. And do you think this White Sox ineptitude is sustainable into next year? And can they create an inverted dynasty where they play this bad for? Because did any of their trades, do you think, actually fill any holes that this team is able to be competitive with what they picked up? And also, hold on, and should this be allowed? Should this type of failure actually raise eyebrows and say, not be this bad? A team cannot be so incompetent. This is almost so bad that it's a black eye on the league, and it's changing.
How do you force competence?
Well, that's what there's competence. There are other leagues that kind of promote.
Relegate them to
So that's what I'm asking. Like, how do you? What would be the solution to that? I guess, right?
Well, it would.
one option is you could remove them from the like revenue sharing pool, like what happened with Oakland, right? Like there was a there is like some requirements. I don't know what they are off the top of my head, but you do have to like. I don't know how you could apply that to competence, but there are criteria that's like, hey, if you're gonna be, I don't know, whatever. I don't know. The White Sox, though, aren't they just doing this intentionally so that they can move to Oakland?
Oh man.
Yeah, White Sox are bad.
I don't think it's level of. Sorry, go Scotty.
No, I was just gonna ask what your thoughts on the White Sox are, and if like, do they gotta move Luis Robert, right?
Yeah, I think at this point, the focus should be. And the thing is, like, also is this, okay? The level of suck that they have, hit, it statistically, it doesn't even make sense, right? It's like, what if everything it's like reverse Tampa, where it's like all the trades just kind of work out, right? But it's like, what if everything that could go wrong did go wrong, and then a bunch of other weird stuff on top of that, right? Like, what if?
Like if you give
Yeah.
a multiple choice test,
Yeah,
right, and you guess on every question, theoretically you should get 25%,
25%, right?
right?
Exactly. And it's like it's like they're cursed. It's like I don't know what like what they're buried on top of or what the fuck is going on there, but I think that even if they did the exact same thing next year, they would still win more. I just think this is against
Yeah.
all odds loserdom that they have achieved.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with that. I kind of feel the same way about the White Sox. I just
Like
like how can they be
like
this
don't
bad again?
don't make. I don't think you have to make any moves. Don't make any moves. Hold on to what you got, and like literally do what I'm mad about the Jays for. Keep your guys and hope for a better result next year. I think that's a good move for the White Sox because anything could be better unless it gets worse. But then like do some kind of spiritual forensics on your team and yourself after that because that's just fucked.
Adam?
Yeah, I don't know. White Sox are bad. I'm not opposed to teams tanking generally, except that in baseball, you don't get the same benefit of tanking that you do in other sports. Like in football, you want to get the superstar college quarterback that's like going to be the face of your franchise for the next decade. Cool. Like I buy into that. I think even the fan bases like get it when they're like, yeah, we're going to just go 1-17 this year and then but next year's going to be awesome once we have
Yeah.
our guy, right? But that's just not the case almost ever in baseball, right? Like the path from draft to contributing superstar that like even like Paul Skeens is exceptionally fast in Pittsburgh, but he's still only 1/5 of starting pitchers on their team. Like there's no singular one draft pick that can turn a franchise around in baseball. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
They'll be bad again next year. If they'll be this bad, I don't know. But I couldn't care less about them except for the fact that they make the rest of the division have
Yep.
Yeah, they're really
that
screwing up that
advantage,
third
right?
wild card spot,
That's
right?
that's the thing. When you already have a division like the AL East, which has traditionally been a more competitive division, anyways, and then you've got that ridiculousness going on in the AL Central. That's the only point of view from which I care about the Chicago White Sox. And so yeah, I don't know what
That's
the
a good
league
point.
can do about it at this point, but it is a problem.
It's like winning's not even special anymore when you're against the White Sox. It's just there you go.
Maybe
Yeah.
wins against them only count for like half or something in the stand. I don't know. Obviously, that's not going to happen. I'm just saying.
I
You
do
know.
think, like, it's funny. Adam dug up all of the central stats against the White
Oh, yeah.
Sox, and literally, like, every team
It's
has
like 8-0, 11-1. Everybody is
Yeah.
except for the Guardians. Guardians.
except for the Guardians, who are 5
5
and
and
5 against them. But as Gibby says, that's baseball.
Baseball.
That's
So,
baseball.
that's baseball. Joel, did you have anything to talk on your topic there? What are your thoughts on the White Sox? Do you care that they're this bad?
I care
Because
from
it
the
feels,
aspect
I
of-
will say this, Joel, before you jump in here. It feels like this isn't tanking. This was an accident.
Yeah,
Am I
like-
off on that?
Well, 2021 White Sox. Look at the expectations on that baseball team.
Yeah.
Look at the thought process of what that team had, the skill on that team, where they would be now. I think everybody's expectations that they would be in the hunt for World Series at this point with the talent that was there 3 years ago. And then to see it all collapse so quickly is just it deserves a documentary. It deserves some sort of deep dive investigation to how this was even possible in a professional sport.
Like, how did it happen? That is such a great question. Like, Eloy Jimenez, like, how is the Orioles pick him up for nothing and just roll the dice with him? Like, how did Tim Anderson become a below, like a negative WAR player? That's insane.
And the fan base, That's not good for the game. I've seen
Oh.
pictures of
No.
Chicago with 8 people in the stands to watch a baseball game. That's not. We shouldn't be putting that on television. Like that's
And these are people that love baseball.
yes.
Chicago is a market that, like,
it's a massively legendary This is a franchise that dates back to the origins of the game, and the failure of the White Sox is also a 100-year thing beyond just this. But yeah, it's staggering to think that I've never seen a team be so bad that their failure changes the way that the division will be laid out. Just one, you could be so bad. In fact, a team can be so good, and it will never have the effect of this team being this bad.
you can be so bad, you make the Detroit Tigers an above 500 team. Impressive. All right, Adam, I would love to hear your topic. Where are we going from here, buddy?
Joey Votto was on foul territory yesterday and talked about the end to his baseball career. And just the thing I want to focus on is his line about not wanting a unearned at bat with the Blue Jays to end it all. And just like a tip of the cap to a guy that I have beef with as a Canadian baseball player. But as a baseball player, I love him. So
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else saw that interview or that, like, the quote about all that, but the gist of it was he just spent his entire career feeling like he earned every at bat, earning the left-handed at bat against the dominant lefty pitcher, and just being good enough to have every at bat that he's ever had. And I just, again, as a Canadian baseball player, not a fan, but as a baseball player, like, I do like Joey Votto, and I thought, again, that was like a nice, like, he clearly respects the fucking shit out of baseball.
Yeah.
Like, just everything about baseball, he just is like, I mean, we talk about, like, a guy like a Relvis Martinez cheating earlier in the show, right? And just, like, Joey Votto just seems like a guy who, like, believes in the sanctity of the game in a way that, like, I think is pretty rare nowadays, and it's pretty cool. And him just saying, like, it wouldn't be right for him to come up and, get called up, and it wouldn't be fair to the guy that gets sent down, who is earning it. And I was like,
It seemed
cool.
genuine too. Like, that was one thing. The fan base here in Toronto really did. There was some backlash, right, to Joey not being given his.
Oh, it would have been an easy bobblehead day. Like,
Yeah.
easy,
Yeah.
for sure.
I was for sure fussy when he retired. But the thing is that, like, you know what? Was he better than a Davis Schneider? Yeah, like, he was. But he wasn't the Votto that he wanted to be. And there was a line that he said in either that interview or one previous where he just said, "I'm not good anymore." And I'm like, yeah, like, that's okay to say that. It's like, I wasn't who I wanted to be. I'm sure he was better than some guys we have on the team, but that's super respectful and super honorable to be like, I don't want to be some goofy novelty. Like,
Well, and he had to come to that on his own, right? Like, theoretically, he could have come to that at the end of last season when no one signed him, right? And I don't know, did we know that he was the one who actually went to the Jays? Because that was said really recently, and I don't know if that had come out previously, but apparently he was the one who reached out to the Blue Jays about a minor league deal, right? And so, to finally come, I guess, full circle, and for his, genuinely on his own end, come to the conclusion, I'm not good anymore. And I think he actually said, sitting on the bench in Buffalo, he didn't even want to take an at bat. He was asked, "Do you want to?" "No, I don't. I actually don't want to do this anymore."
Which was a light bulb moment, according to him, right? Because he was like, I've never had this feeling before.
Right. And so, he absolutely, I think I already had a tremendous amount of respect for him, but I think that really is the idea of a guy playing the game the right way.
Yep.
And truly respecting baseball. I think it's unfortunate. And again, I do think he drove a lot of the decision making here. I think it's unfortunate that he retired from a parking lot in Buffalo and then hauled ass to get to Toronto to say goodbye to his former teammates on the Reds. I guess that seems very. I don't know if that could have potentially gone differently, but it sounds like the Jays really allowed him to kind of call those shots on the end of his own career.
Shout out to Gate14 for one of the funnier tweets I've seen where they're like ranking the top moment to happen in Blue Jays history in a parking lot. And it was like number 1, Reese McGuire, number 2, Joey Votto. Yeah.
That's funny.
All right. Anything to add on Joey Votto here, Joel?
Yeah. Oh no, sorry. I have one more thing I want to hop
Lizzie,
in there.
please.
I got one more thing. The fact is, like, people were like, well, it could have been cleaner if he just would have retired at the end of his Reds career. But the way that he did it shows you his love for the game.
Yes.
His heart was broken, right? His heart was broken. He thought, I have something more here. And it was like the story of a man coming to terms with his own end of something he loved very much, which makes it much more endearing for me, even.
Couldn't agree more.
There's
Joel,
a whole
any thoughts on-
Kevin Costner movie about the final year of Joey Votto that I just can't wait to watch.
Yeah.
Does he walk into the corn?
Yes.
He walks in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Flowers
Joel,
for
did you
Joey
have
Votto.
anything to add here on Joey?
Yeah, the element that Jen said, it was this full circle moment for him because I think he talked about how he came up watching Devon White shag balls in the outfield, and that was the guy who asked him if he wanted that final at bat. So he had seen his entire career come full circle from when he was a child to that guy that he watched adoringly as a Blue Jays fan growing up, that guy being the one to ask him, and when he said no, he said, "I'm done.
Yeah.
I think I'm done." It wasn't, "Do you want this at bat?" It's, "No, my career's over."
Yeah,
And it
I
was
think
I'm
that
done.
realization that something as simple as not wanting to be up at the plate meant that the competitive fire was gone, and that he didn't. If he didn't want to go up, and if he didn't feel like he had it anymore, then that was the message the game had to send him before he could hang him up. And we all have to find that moment, right? Like it's in Moneyball. Some people stop when they're 12, some people stop when they're 40, but you all stop, right? And that's that situation. You have to let the game. You have to come to terms with that end. And the fact that he stayed true in his major league career to the Reds is also something kind of beautiful. It's kind of that classic hockey player that we saw growing up, staying with that one organization and always like
Steve
he
Eisner
had that
types.
run, but maybe it's a little bit more beautiful to his story that he never did make it as a Blue Jay, right? He never did come up and get that one at bat. You look at him on Baseball Reference, and Cincinnati Reds fans see Cincinnati from the beginning to the end.
Still going into the Hall of Fame with a Jays cap, though. No. It is funny, though, full circle moment. He started out as a Blue Jays fan and then came up through American baseball and couldn't care less about Canada. And then at the end, loved Canada baseball, and then at the very end, didn't want to play for the Jays.
Wait, did he ever play for Team Canada?
I think he did at a World Baseball
I think
Classic.
he did. Yeah, I think he did once. Yeah. I'd need to go back and look. That's a great question, though.
I'm sure he did.
Also, when I say I need to go back and look, if you're on YouTube right now waiting, I'm not actually looking it up.
2009 World Baseball Classic. Yeah.
There you go. Thank you, Adam. All right. Jen, you always come prepared with numerous topics.
Yeah, I have two.
What do you have for us?
Whatever one we don't answer this week, we can answer next week, I suppose. Although I'll have 3 more next week. So, the question that I came into the show with was, who's the AL MVP, and or is what there was. I heard Jeff Passan on the radio and the conversation about whether what Ohtani is doing is easier because he's not pitching and he's DHing only. So that was what I came into the show with. And then when Joel started talking about identity, we never got to the topic of Vlad today, and we were going to.
Yeah.
And I was going to ask if managing to extend Vlad automatically gives the team an identity. So those are the two topics that I had here. Does Vlad equal identity, or who's the AL MVP? I couldn't.
So I would love to start because I have an easy answer for MVP. I really do think it's just as unsexy and as much as I hate to say it, I think it just is Aaron Judge. I just think that what he is doing right now is absolutely gobsmacking. It is insane that he is putting up better numbers than he did in 2022. It's insane he's chasing his own home run record again. It is insane that he has an OPS. Forget above 1,000, above 1,100. It just, you know, and I do give obviously he's got protection around him with Juan Soto, but it's not like there's a big bat behind him. Alex Verdugo has been a black hole, and it makes so much sense for him to be walked even more than he is. But this year he has a lot of intentional walks. It's just hard to, as much as I want to be a dick and a Yankees hater, because I do hate the Yankees, and be like Bobby Witt Jr. should get it, or even be a homer and be like Vladdy. I just can't. I just can't see anyone else winning that award.
Can I, before anybody jumps in, can I just say I don't fucking give a shit about the AL home run record. It's an arbitrary distinction.
Yeah. That's fair.
I didn't care about it in the race when he did it. I don't care about him breaking his... It's just a stupid thing. It's like saying I'm the leader of the fucking AL East all-time home run leader. Okay, cool.
Do you care about Ohtani potentially hitting 50-50?
Yeah. I think that's really cool.
It's funny because, like, honestly, if it's 49 and 51,
it's still the same thing, really.
It's still so crazy, but it won't have the same
milestones
weight.
Matter. It's weird.
Milestones matter, yeah.
Nice round numbers.
Yeah.
Nerds. Yeah, I think. Wait, but who was Passan comparing Ohtani to? It was somebody like who wasn't that. I thought. Spectacular. Like it wasn't in the running. Anyway, I can't remember.
I don't remember, but I just remember him saying that.
Oh yeah, Lindor. Yeah.
Lindor's actually ahead in F4.
Yeah.
But it's so staggering the difference in offense, right? It's Ohtani every single category, right? So, except for batting average, I think Arise has average.
But being an exceptional defensive shortstop is a big deal, and he's a big reason why the Mets are where they're at.
Yeah. I think Ohtani's got it, but like part of me is just like, I don't know. Will Ohtani have it forever? I don't know.
Yeah. Joel, who do you think is the AL MVP?
I think it's Judge. I think it's wild to think that he had the start to the season that he had, and he's going after 63. I little bit disagree with Adam on the value of this record because it's the clean league. It's the clean record, right? Like the over there, it's a bunch of guys who hit 60 with needles in their butts. Over here, it was a guy who hit it in the 20s with hot dogs, and then a guy who did it with his hair falling out in the 60s. And now Judge. And it's like there's this thing about it being the Yankees. So it's beautiful to see that there's a way to hunt for a home run record still. Because there was so long where it was like 71 is now, to be completely honest, Judge has a good April and he might be hunting 70. Judge had a good April. 70 isn't. It's 68. I think he'd be on. So my question is, well, not my question, but my point is, if Judge in the next couple of years, where I still think he's got it in him to do it, if he comes out hot, 70 is potential for this guy, the way that he's hitting the ball. So, he's MVP. I think the second place guy is still on his team. I think it's Soto.
Yeah.
I think Soto is absolutely ridiculous this year.
Yeah.
And he's going to get $500 million in the offseason. And I think the fact that you've got the two biggest names in the game chasing history, if you see Yankees versus Dodgers in the World Series, that's just going to be a beautiful thing for the game. And yes, Jen, Vladdy means identity.
Let's table that one for next week, maybe.
I I hear what Joel's saying about clean league. It just still feels to me like, okay, we're clearly referring to Mark McGuire, Sammy Sosa, Barry Bonds, right?
Yes.
But them all being in the National League is just a happenstance. Like, I don't think it's not like the American League back in the 90s was clean and the National League was the juice league. Like, all of MLB baseball was juicing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, like,
you could say the AL home run record is clean.
Yeah, it is. But
it's just, again, it's just an arbitrary distinction.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to say he's the all-time single season clean home run leader, I'll buy that record. I'll play along with that
he's the
one.
all-time single season home run champion. You just say that.
Sure. I'm just saying that when the distinction gets made in the media, it's that he has the AL record, and I'm just like, I could fucking care less about that. But if what you're selling is it's the clean home run record, single season, I'll buy that. I'm still like, okay, I don't know. Is he clean? I don't know. You're only clean till you get caught.
All right, we will end on our final topic here. This is episode 369 of Long Toss. Thank you so much, everybody who's followed along. Hit that like button. If you are not subscribed, it's a big help to the channel if you hit that subscribe button. Lizzie, bring us home.
Yeah, I got like a soft toss here. It is Romano. He's not coming back. Do you guys see him in our future? I don't think he's going to be closing. Can we get some money for him? What are your thoughts?
Ooh.
Is it possibly non-tender him? Because this is his last season, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right? So this is his last arbitration eligible season, then I believe he's a free agent. So I guess it's the same question, right? Like, is he the closer or is he your setup guy? And are you hanging on to him for a year? Are you hoping he does something in the first half so you can trade him at the trade deadline?
And do they know
Are
something?
you just cutting bait on that money? Like what? Yeah.
And do they know something we don't? Like, why didn't they bring him back? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, Jordan Romano really is a big question mark, and with how bad this bullpen is right now, there's a major overhaul coming. I think if this front office isn't extremely focused on the bullpen, it is going to be very similar to 2021 when it was our downfall, very similar to this year, although even with a good bullpen, I think we're up shit creek here. But, like, the bullpen is a big deal, and Jordan Romano has been an absolute stud for this team. But can he be that guy again after missing pretty much a full year? He hasn't pitched since April. Where's his arm at? He's a little older. I don't know. It's a really good question, and I would honestly be really choked if we just never see Romano again in a Blue Jays jersey. I do think it is a possibility that maybe they do move on from him. Maybe they move him in an attempt to clear up some money. It depends on how much he's valued in arbitration, but
I think the estimate I saw was $8 million.
yeah.
He got
Can you get a better arm for $8 million on the open market? Probably not. I don't know.
The Blue Jays avoided arbitration with him this year and signed him for 7.75, and he is ARB eligible for one more season next year. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to know, and like I said, going into his walk year, do the Blue Jays see him as being part of the future? Like, are you extending this guy? And if you're not, then you've only got 1 year left of him anyway. So maybe if there is any trade value there, I don't know, right?
Yeah.
Clearly, they need to overhaul this bullpen one way or another.
I know this is a left turn here, but Adam, do you believe in Chad Green? Like, he's being paid as our big stud closer at the back end of that bullpen. Is he? He's getting $10.5 million next year, by the way.
He is 33 years old, for whatever that's worth. Has a .95 whip and a 2.72 ERA through 46 appearances this year with the Blue Jays. I don't know. I don't know where I'm at on Green. Like, I think bring him back because again,
You have
with the
to.
question mark on Romano, like you really can't just pencil Romano in to be the closer next year. Like it's there is the hope that like okay, give him a full year removed from Tommy John or whatever and blah blah. But it's like I mean, missing a year is going to take him a longer than normal ramp up, right? And then where is his what percentage of full power is he when he is back, right? Like, is his ceiling next year a delayed start? Like he's not himself, quote unquote, until July? Can we have a subpar him for the first 3 months? Like if he's healthy enough to pitch, but he's not himself, like we can't have that as our closer. And then again, is he even getting back to the levels he was last year once he is back in July, if that is the case, or whatever month you want to put it at, right? It's a big ask for a guy that's on the wrong side of 30. So I don't know. Like maybe he's I don't know. I feel bad about it. I like Romano. I've apologized on his behalf to Blue Jays fans that are frustrated with him for a long time.
Yeah.
I've had my own frustrations with him. I don't know. I don't know about his future with the Jays. I don't know what the trade value is for him either, though. Like,
what's really frustrating is that if they don't move on from him, you need Jordan Romano, and I mean, this goes double for Chad Green. You need them to be really good. Like, you forget about acceptable. If this team is going to compete in 2025, which, I mean, who knows, but
sure.
Holy shit, does this bullpen need to be a lot better. A lot better. You need to see positive regression from a lot of guys that are on this team and going to be in the bullpen, and then you need to see this front office go out and get some real, legit back end of the bullpen guys.
To
right?
give you a
leverage.
gauge of the panic level on this bullpen, I did a poll right at the start of the show on what are the 4 most urgent priority, or like, here's 4 options. What's, in your opinion, the most urgent priority for this offseason? Is it starting pitchers? Is it the bullpen? Is it re-sign Bo and or Vlad? Or is it the addition of like free agent position players? And it was like 40% bullpen votes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
the
because they're
bullpen is
losing
costing
games.
so many games, right? And some of that is overuse of certain pitchers. But a lot of that is just it's been a bad bullpen. And so I don't even know how they're going to actually overhaul it. I have no idea how that's going to even look. You can't be dead last in the league in terms of home runs given up and think you're going to go anywhere.
Tough to argue that. If anyone else has anything to add, feel free here. Otherwise, we will wrap this thing up.
Scott, I got one more thing to chirp before we wrap it up.
Please.
I got a plug. So this week on the Jaybird Watching podcast at Thursday, we have Todd Stottlemyre on.
Hey!
Yeah, I know, it's pretty
I
good.
had such a crush on him as a kid.
Right? I'm like really pumped. Anyways, Thursday at 7, I will be late for the baseball town. But anyway, Todd Stottlemyre on Jaybird Watching podcast. Sorry.
No, don't be. Very, very cool. I was going to go around and ask everyone if they had something. So great enthusiasm there, Lizzie. Jaybird Watching podcast, Todd Stottlemyre, Thursday. Everybody check it out. Baseball Jen, where can people experience your beautiful baseball mind on Twitter? What's your handle
following there? Todd Stottlemyre on Thursday, apparently. First of all, you can find me on Twitter/X at baseball_Jen. That's Jen with 2 N's.
Joel, busy month for you. Things are just lining up for you, my friend. I'm so proud of you. I brag about you all the time here. What do you got going on over the next couple weeks?
I'm driving down to Minnesota because I got lucky that one of my scripts got one of my lowest budget script got picked up and they want me to direct it. So that kind of got fluky for me. And then I'm going to LA to meet with a rep company, and they're going to,
Make you a star.
Well, just take a lot of the arduous stuff that I have no idea what I'm doing and take over that, and
You get to be creative.
Percentage.
Focus on the creative stuff. Right?
yeah, that's right. Focus on what I do best instead of what I suck at. So, you got to put yourself in the best possible position of it. Right? That's just take a
This
metaphor.
This was really fun, gang. Honestly, having you all back and talking baseball with you. Lizzie, your first time was a blast. Really appreciate it. Adam, man.
We'll see you for
Love having you
469.
That's right. We'll see everybody for MLB Mondays tomorrow if you're on Patreon. If not, we will see you Tuesday for Mailbag. On that, I will beg you all one last time to hit the like button and hit